Okay, so if you have a positive and a negative and you're adding, you're going to find what the biggest integer is. So for example, this one, if nothing is before it, it's a positive. So if you need to remind yourself, you can put a little positive in there. The integer is the number without the thing or the sign in front of it. So for this one, the integer is 30 and the integer is 2. Now, when you're adding or subtracting, the biggest integer wins the sign. So because 30 is the biggest number, our answer is going to be positive. We have a positive and a negative right before the integer, so we subtract. 30 minus 2 is 28. For this one, we're going to do the same technique. We have biggest integer wins the sign, it's negative, and then right before the 30 there's a negative, and right before the 2 there's a negative. So we add them together. 30 plus 2 is 32, and our answer is negative because biggest integer wins the sign. Now in math you might see something like this, and what this means is negative 30 minus negative 2. When you see these two negative signs like this, you're going to circle it. You're going to make it into a plus sign. Then you're going to rewrite the problem like this. Then we use our technique. Biggest integer wins the sign. My biggest integer is 30, so my answer is going to be negative. I have a negative and a positive, so I subtract. If these are the same, we add. If they're different, here's a negative and a positive, or this one would be a negative and a positive. Or if there was nothing in front, but we know that means positive, then we would subtract the integers. For multiplication, it's actually way easier. For multiplying and dividing, if you have a positive person and they're having a conversation with a negative person, the conversation will be negative. If you have a positive person and a positive person and they're talking to each other, the conversation will be positive. If you have a negative person and a negative person speaking, it will be a positive experience for both of them. And if you have a negative person speaking to a positive person, it will be a negative conversation. Now, sometimes we have what you saw in your homework, and you might have more than one of these. So if there's an odd number of negative signs, the answer is negative. And if you had an even number, like in this one, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 negatives, the answer is positive. And then for multiplying, we'll just do a few examples. Negative 3 times negative 3, we have 2 negatives, so it's a positive, and 3 times 3 is 9. Negative 4 times negative 4, we have 2 negatives, so it's positive, and it's 16. Negative 4 times negative 4 times negative 4 times negative 4 times negative 4. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's an odd number of signs. And then we would just do 4 times 4 times 4 times 4 times 4. 1024. Okay, for dividing, same thing. 30 divided by 5. We have two positives, so it would be a positive conversation, and the answer is 6. Negative 30 divided by 5, you have a negative person speaking to a positive person, so it is a negative conversation, and 30 divided by 5 is 6. Negative 30 divided by negative 5, we have a negative person speaking to a negative person. It would be a positive experience. 30 divided by 5 is 6. And then we have 30 divided by negative 5. You have a positive person speaking to a negative person. it would be negative. And then 30 divided by 5 is 6. Another thing that you did was this. If the negative is outside the parentheses like this, or if it's like this, then we would handle it differently than if it's all in the parentheses. So for this one, we have negative 3. We would write it out, negative 3 times negative 3. This one is actually 3 times 3, and the answer is negative no matter what, because the negative follows through. It does not get put in the parentheses. So the only thing that's getting squared is what's inside of the parentheses. Then this one, it's 3 times 3, and then this follows. It's always negative no matter what. So let's figure these out. Negative 3 times negative 3. 2 people are having a negative conversation. The answer is positive, and 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 3 is 9, and then it answers negative, so it's negative 9. 3 times 3 is 9, and my answer is negative because it's outside here. So let's try it with 3. This one is negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3. This one is 3 times 3 times 3. And the answer is negative because it's outside. And then this one is 3 times 3 times 3. And this negative follows it here, so it's negative. 3 times 3 is 9, times 3 is 27. And I have an odd number of negative signs, so my answer is negative. This one is negative 27, and this one is negative 27. Does that make sense to you, Hadley?